She was 19, scrubbing another family's floor, while the future promised to her rotted in a storeroom that smelled of old stockfish. Her uncle had taken her from the village, with lies about school, hope, and a better life. But in Lagos, he gave her only a broom, a mop, a 4:30 alarm, and a mat on the floor. Every morning, she watched his children leave for school while she stood at the gate with a bucket in her hand. He thought he had buried her dreams. He never imagined the girl he called servant was quietly preparing to become the one name he would one day fear. Before we begin, dear friends, welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, this is where we share the kind of stories that touch the heart, shake the soul, and remind us what human dignity really means. Please take a second to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Now, let us begin. Back in the small town of Willow Creek, her parents believed she was studying in Atlanta. They believed it because Uncle Leonard told them so. He sent messages. He described her school, her classes, her grades, her progress. Once, he even sent home a paper he called a report card through a traveling neighbor. It was not real, but her parents could not know that. They showed it proudly to people at church. They told neighbors their daughter was in the city, getting educated, preparing for a better life. Meanwhile, in a storage room upstairs in Leonard Blake's house, their daughter was solving math problems by flashlight in the margins of a torn textbook she had found in the trash. Her name was Emily Carter. Her grandmother had once told her the name meant hardworking and beloved. But in that house, nobody called her Emily. They called her girl. They called her, hey, you. They called her, are you deaf? They called her lazy when she was already exhausted. Emily answered to all of it, but she kept her real name locked inside her chest, where no one in that house could touch it. She had been 15 when Uncle Leonard came home for Christmas. His car alone made half the street come outside. He stepped out wearing a pressed shirt, a gold watch, and the kind of smile people wear when they want everyone to notice they have done well. He brought bags of groceries, boxes of soda, and small gifts for the family. Then he sat in the front room and spoke to Emily's parents, like a man offering salvation. Emily's family was not poor in a storybook way. They were poor in the tired, daily way. Her father fixed lawnmowers and broken engines behind the house. Her mother sold pies, preserves, and second-hand clothes at the weekend market. Together, they kept 6 children fed, patched leaks, paid bills late, and prayed nothing serious would break. Emily was the second child and the only daughter. She had always been the best student in her class. Her 5th grade teacher had written one sentence on her final report in red ink. This child must not be allowed to stop school. Her parents read it and felt proud, then ashamed, then helpless. So when Leonard offered to take her to Atlanta, enroll her in a good school, let her live with his family, and only help a little around the house, they saw it as an answered prayer. Emily sat in the corner, pretending not to listen, but every word landed inside her like a door opening. She was not afraid. She was 15, bright, trusting, and still young enough to believe adults meant what they said. The night before she left, her mother braided her hair and packed her best clothes. Her father pressed a folded $20 bill into her hand at the bus stop and said, "Make us proud." Emily promised she would. She meant it. Nobody knew what had already been planned before she ever stepped into Leonard's car. The house in Atlanta looked huge to her. 2 floors, a locked gate, a garage, polished counters, a flat-screen TV, soft couches she was later told not to sit on. Aunt Patricia met her at the door, looked her up and down, and asked if she was strong. Emily said yes. Patricia nodded, like that was all she needed to know. During the first week, Emily waited for someone to mention school. She washed dishes, swept the porch, folded laundry, and helped with the younger children because she wanted to be useful. On the 8th day, the housekeeper quit and went back to her hometown. By Friday afternoon, Patricia had shown Emily the cleaning supplies. By Saturday, she had given her the full schedule. By Monday, Emily was doing everything the housekeeper used to do. She cooked breakfast, packed lunches, washed uniforms, mopped floors, cleaned bathrooms, watched the younger kids, ironed shirts, ran errands, and slept only after the whole house had gone quiet. Still, she waited. 2 months later, she finally asked about school. Patricia smiled thinly and told her, "Everything has its time. Be patient." So, Emily was patient. She thought patience was good. She thought good girls waited. She did not yet understand that patience in the hands of selfish people can become a chain. Months became a year. A year became 2. Leonard's 3 children walked out every morning in clean uniforms and climbed into the car that took them to private school. Emily stood at the gate with a broom in her hand, watched the car disappear, then turned back to the laundry pile. In Willow Creek, her parents kept receiving cheerful updates. Leonard told them Emily was doing well. He said she was studying hard. He said she was becoming a fine young woman. Her parents thanked God. Nobody told them she was rising before dawn, eating leftovers, sleeping beside boxes, and teaching herself at night with stolen minutes and a flashlight. Nobody in that house imagined that the girl they were using would one day become the very person who exposed the cruelty they had hidden behind the word family. In 4 years, Emily filled 12 notebooks. She wrote down vocabulary words, math formulas, news headlines, facts from the radio, quotes from library books, and every lesson she could steal from the world around her. She found an old high school math book behind the garage, wiped dirt from the cover, and worked through every problem twice. She stopped waiting sometime during the 2nd year. She understood then that waiting for Leonard and Patricia to keep their promise was like waiting for snow in July. It was not coming, so she built her own way out. She discovered a public library 3 bus stops away. When she had bus money, she rode. When she did not, she walked 40 minutes there and 40 minutes back, moving fast so nobody would notice how long she was gone. She sat in the back corner and read history, science, literature, grammar, business, law, anything she could reach. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, the older librarian, noticed her after the 4th visit. She noticed the notebook. She noticed the way Emily read, not lazily, not for entertainment, but like someone gathering bricks to build a house no one else could see. One afternoon, Mrs. Brooks leaned close and told her there was an adult evening program 3 streets away. Classes ran from 6 to 8. The fee was small. Emily stared at her, barely breathing, then asked how to apply. She paid with money saved over 8 months. $1 here, 50 cents there, coins kept from grocery change, tiny amounts hidden in the hem of an old bag. She did not tell Leonard. She did not tell Patricia. She simply started going. For the first time in 4 years, she sat in a room where someone expected her mind to work, not just her hands. She was older than most of the new students, and far ahead of nearly all of them. Her teacher, Miss Claire Evans, noticed within 2 weeks Emily was not catching up. She was racing forward. She answered questions before others had finished writing them down. She asked sharper questions than the textbook expected. Miss Evans began staying after class to talk with her, to give her extra exercises, to tell her she had a gift that must not be wasted. On a Tuesday evening in November, Emily met Daniel Reed. He was not a student. He was a quiet city employee who volunteered twice a week to help with math because the program had no proper math teacher. Daniel was 31, plain-looking in the calm way good people often are. No big speeches, no show. He came in, rolled up his sleeves, and helped. He noticed Emily because she finished the equations before he finished explaining them. After class, he asked where she had learned so much. Emily said she had taught herself from a discarded book. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said, "I have more books if you want them." That was how it began. Not with romance, not with drama, just a decent man with textbooks and a young woman hungry for a chance. For 6 months, Emily studied, like her life depended on it, because it did. She cleaned before sunrise, cooked before anyone woke up, rushed through errands, slipped into class when she could, came back tired, washed dishes, checked homework for children who had everything she had been denied, then studied again after midnight. She was 19, overworked, underfed, and still the happiest she had been since leaving home. Then the house found out. Sophie, Leonard's oldest daughter, saw her first. She was in the car with her father when they passed the evening school. Through an open window, she saw Emily standing near the doorway with a notebook under her arm, talking to a man she did not recognize. That evening, she told Patricia. Patricia did not shout at first. She did something worse. She tightened the walls around Emily's life. The morning alarm moved from 5 to 4:30. Extra chores appeared from nowhere. Dinner prep was pushed later. Market runs were suddenly scheduled for Tuesday and Thursday, the exact evenings Daniel came to teach. Laundry that could have waited was dumped in front of her at 5:30. Patricia never said, "You cannot go." She simply made going impossible. One evening, Emily stood in the hallway with her school bag hidden behind her back and asked, carefully, respectfully, if she could attend her class. Patricia looked at her like she was looking at a dirty dish left in the sink, then walked away without answering. Emily stood there, breathing slowly, and understood something with frightening calm. This was not the end of her education. This was the end of her asking permission. That night, she went to the storage room, sat on her thin mat, opened her 12th notebook, and wrote one sentence at the top of a clean page. "I am leaving," she told Daniel on a Saturday at the library. She stretched a grocery errand by 40 minutes, met him near the back shelves, and told him everything. She did not tell him because she wanted to be saved. She had already decided. She told him because he was the only person in Atlanta who called her Emily, and meant it. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stayed quiet for a moment, then said he knew a woman in Decatur who rented small rooms to working women. The rent was fair. The house was safe. He could make a call. Then he said the high school equivalency exam registration deadline was in 3 weeks. If she wanted to take it, they had to move fast. He offered to cover the fee. She could pay him back later, or not. That part, he said, was her choice. Emily looked at him, searching for pity, pressure, or hidden terms. There were none. Just steadiness. She said, "I'll pay back every dollar." Daniel nodded and said, "I know." She left on a Thursday morning. She did not make a scene. She did not write a goodbye letter. She woke at 4:30, cooked breakfast, packed lunches, washed the breakfast pans, swept the kitchen, and moved through the house exactly as she always had. Then, at 7, while Leonard read the news, Patricia poured coffee, and the children argued about shoes, Emily went upstairs, picked up the same small bag she had brought 4 years earlier, now heavier with 12 notebooks, 2 borrowed textbooks, and the last pieces of herself she had refused to surrender. She walked down the stairs. She opened the back door. She crossed the yard. She unlocked the gate. She did not run. She walked away at her own pace, in a direction she had chosen. By the time they noticed she was gone, the house exploded. Patricia called numbers Emily had never had. Leonard phoned Willow Creek and performed outrage like a man on a stage. He told Emily's parents she had become ungrateful. He said she had run off. He hinted at shame. Her parents were frightened and confused. They called the number they had for Emily, the one Leonard had given them, and no one answered. Then a message reached Emily through neighborhood connections. "Come back and apologize, or we will tell your family what kind of girl you have become." Emily read it once, set it aside, and opened her study guide. She had 12 days before registration closed. She did not have time for threats from people who had stolen 4 years and were angry she had taken back the rest. The room in Decatur was small but honest. 1 bed, 1 narrow window, a shared kitchen, and a landlady named Mrs. Ruth Collins, who looked Emily straight in the eye and said, "Rent is due on the 1st. Keep your space clean. Don't bring trouble to my house." Emily agreed to all three. In the second week, she found work doing data entry at a small shipping office. The pay was not much, but it was hers. She worked by day, studied by evening, and reviewed math with Daniel on weekends. What grew between them grew slowly, like something real. No grand speeches, no rushing, no rescue fantasy, just respect, books, bus rides, late-night phone calls about homework, and the quiet comfort of someone showing up again and again. 4 months after leaving Leonard's house, Emily took the exams. When the results arrived, she sat on her little bed and stared at the paper for a long time. She had passed with high marks in almost every subject. She did not scream. She did not dance. She just sat there, holding proof that the nights, the hunger, the flashlight, the walking, the fear, and the 12 notebooks had not been for nothing. Then she called her mother. For 2 hours, she told the truth. Her mother cried through most of it, not from embarrassment, but from the pain of realizing too late that she had handed her daughter to the wrong man. Her father could not speak for 20 minutes. When he finally took the phone, his voice was broken. He said, "You have your grandmother's backbone." In their family, there was no higher praise. Leonard learned what Emily had become 3 years later, not from a family call, but from television. He was sitting in the same polished living room where Emily had once been forbidden to sit when a local news segment came on about young leaders changing lives in Atlanta. The reporter introduced a 22-year-old woman who had launched a community education program for domestic workers, school dropouts, and young people trapped in unpaid household labor. Her name appeared on the screen, Emily Carter. Her face filled the room. The same girl who had scrubbed his floors before sunrise. The same girl who had slept in the storage room. The same girl he had called ungrateful for wanting the education he had promised her. Leonard stared at the screen. Patricia stopped moving. Sophie looked down at her phone and said nothing. Nobody in that room could name the expression on Leonard's face, but everyone felt it. Something heavy had landed there, and it was not leaving. Emily and Daniel married 2 years after she walked out of the gate. It was a warm Saturday afternoon. Her parents came. Mrs. Brooks from the library cried through the whole ceremony. Miss Evans gave a speech that made half the guests reach for tissues. Daniel stood beside Emily, not as the man who saved her, but as the man who had respected her enough to walk beside her while she saved herself. They later had 2 daughters. The first was named Rose, after Emily's mother. The second was named Grace, because Grace had been needed at every turn of the story. Emily's education program grew. What began as 3 women studying at Mrs. Collins's kitchen table became a registered nonprofit with foundation support, volunteer teachers, exam prep classes, legal referrals, and partnerships with community centers across the city. Emily did not build it for revenge. She built it because she knew the cost of wanting to learn while someone else controlled the door. She knew what it meant to study in secret, to hide notebooks, to steal time, to be told gratitude meant silence. And she decided fewer young people should have to pay that price. Eventually, she cut off Leonard and Patricia completely. No shouting, no final confrontation, no dramatic phone call. She simply stopped answering. Then she changed her number. Then the silence became permanent. Years later, her parents visited her apartment in Atlanta. It was a real home, full of sunlight, bookshelves, framed family photos, and furniture she and Daniel had chosen together. Her father sat at the kitchen table with his granddaughter on his lap and stayed quiet for a long time. Then he looked at Emily and said, "I should have come for you sooner." Emily touched his hand and said, "You came when you knew. I found my way before that." Both things were true. Patience can be beautiful, but patience given to the wrong people becomes a cage. Gratitude can be honorable, but gratitude demanded by people who exploit you becomes a weapon. Family can be sacred, but not when it is used as a cover for cruelty. Emily's story was never about destroying Leonard Blake. She did not build her life to make him feel small. She built it because it belonged to her. The years he took did not take the one thing that mattered most, her knowledge of her own worth. Some people will take from you and call it help. They will use you and call it family. They will keep you small and call it protection. They are not owed your silence. They are not owed your future. They are not owed the version of you that makes their guilt easier to carry. Sometimes courage is not loud. Sometimes courage is a young woman waking before sunrise, finishing every chore, picking up one small bag, opening a gate, and walking away without looking back. Emily knew who she was before the city ever recognized her. She only needed a room of her own, 12 notebooks, a library, 3 bus stops away, and one decent person who showed up with textbooks and no hidden agenda. That was enough. It had always been enough. My dear friends, if you stayed with this story until the end, thank you. We tell stories like Emily's because even when they are fictional, they carry truths that are happening in real homes, real cities, and real families right now. Somewhere, a young person is sleeping in a storage room. Somewhere, someone was promised school and handed a broom. Somewhere, someone is studying in the dark, writing in a notebook, saving coins, waiting for the morning they finally walk out and do not return. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember their life is still theirs. Tell me in the comments which moment stayed with you the most, and tell me where you are watching from tonight. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss another story. And before you go, remember this: nobody else gets to decide what you are worth. That knowledge belongs to you, always has, always will.